economic system is not divine, it's not natural, it's ours. We build the laws, we make sure that money, we print money, they don't fall from the sky. I mean, there's some parts of it are spontaneous, but majority is actually a result of engineering. Ironically, I think there's a couple of paradoxes built in the American way of looking at economics and the European way of looking at economics. The traditional understanding is that Americans are much more business-oriented and they're much more sort of, economic, and while we Europeans are rather, culture and history and post-modernity and, being very wide sort of in our approach. But, looking at this historically and again critically, one has to question this notion. Think back to the 20s and 30s when the big economic crises happened in the United States of America. That's where it was born. That's where it was actually even more cruel, let's say. But it didn't lead to any civil war or any war in America or falling apart of the United States of America. Not at all. On the contrary, it sort of brought the American people, the North American people together. And then the crises in the late 30s, mid-30s came to Europe. It wasn't as cruel as in America, but it led to a self-inflicted, terrible war that we spread all over the globe. And again, the start there was an economic crisis. This is, anyway, the common understanding. And something similar you could see in 2008. Again, the crisis started in the United States of America, and it looked like it's going to be contained there, and the effects would be much more dramatic on the United States of America. But nothing really, outside of economics, nothing happened politically. Nobody didn't, question the idea of American Union. While the moment the crisis hit Europe, this was the first thing we did. We panicked, we overreacted. I would say we Europeans react to economy much more hysterically than American. And we almost split up the Eurozone. We started questioning the whole project of European integration, which is the biggest revolution we have had in Europe. The biggest gift we could have given to the world is peace, because we have not been very good at that in the past. And so you see, in America, an economic crisis is understood as an economic crisis. So to speak, the market giveth and the market taketh away, blessed be the name of the market. This is sort of the way how Americans take it. They're able to sort of bite the bullet, it seems to me. While we Europeans, contrary to the common notion, actually react to economic both ups and downs, but much more hysterically. So now I talked about how we react to the economic crises, overreact. But we also overreact to the economic sort of manias. Why? Because we have built the idea of European integration mainly on the idea of economic integration. And we've put so much emphasis on the economic success of EU, then there is no wonder then when the economy is not doing so well, people immediately start questioning the whole idea of European Union, which is of course wrong. So in a way you could even go and be provocative here and say Americans may be a little bit more cultured in this because they see economy in its place. They see human rights. The American nation was built on, let's say, more fundamental principles than just economic success. That's why when the economy falters in America, nobody thinks of breaking down the union, while this is quite normal to happen for us Europeans. The current system is in the state in which it is not sustainable. Not only for ecological reasons, with which I understand. My argumentation here is a little bit, I would say, going even beyond that. I say, even if we had endless resources, as we do not, I'm not doubting, but let's just imagine that clean air is abundant, enough of petrol, enough of coal, or let's say that we tomorrow invent some magical way of energy source, whatever. Even then, the system is not sustainable. Why? Basically, I would say the biggest reason why the system is unsustainable is because it was built as a ship, built under the assumptions that favorable winds will always blow. And that's not a good ship. Of course, when you want to build a ship, You want to make sure that that ship can harvest the wind with the best possible and that it can really make use of every single puff. But to build a ship that sinks the moment it starts raining or the sun stops shining, the wind stops blowing, that's not a good ship. We built our ship under the assumption that the economy will always grow, for example. And that's a stupid and naive and idiotic assumption, which doesn't mean that I'm against growth. I am very much for growth, like I am very much enjoying sunny days, but it would be stupid and naive and idiotic to expect every day to be sunny. And it wouldn't even work, the ecosystem would collapse. But that's a different story. So the pension system example that you used is a system that was built under the assumption that the economy will keep growing. The moment the economy does not, the system starts, in a way, collapsing. And what's the remedy? Well, the remedy is really, in fact, in this case, quite simple. Let's build the pension system under the assumption that the economy is flat. And when it grows, hallelujah, let's be grateful for that. And let's maybe think of creative ways how to use that and help somebody, perhaps. But not get dependent on growth. I know, alcohol, great thing. You get dependent on it, bad thing. Growth, great thing. If you get dependent on it, bad thing. You can't survive a day without alcohol. If you can't survive a quarter without growth, one has a problem there. There is something that we Europeans all want together. It's very difficult to see it when you live in Europe. It's very easy to see it if you live somewhere else. Anywhere. Even in America, you immediately feel, okay, so this is why I'm European, this is why we believe differently. So, let alone if you live in China, Russia, Africa, or somewhere else, you will immediately know what it is that we Europeans value. And that's quality of life, respect for one another, making things actually quite meticulously. There's a lot of respect, there's a protection of the weak, be it minority or economically speaking. There is a huge belief, maybe even overrated belief in democracy, with which I am quite happy, but the negative side of that is people feel that European Union is not democratic enough, while it's in fact the most democratic structure we've ever had in Europe, and also possibly maybe with the exception of a couple of other countries, but otherwise it's one of the most democratic regimes in the world. There aren't really any regimes that we can say, okay, fine, let's just copy that. No, this is why it's so difficult. We have a lot of feelings towards the culture. We have an understanding of, let's say, the quality of life, which we also value. But of course, you don't notice it until you're deprived of it. So those things, I think, are European, and that's what I think I tried to bring forward in this narrative process, to say that the economy is not just, that the European Union is not just the sum of its economies, it's much, much more.